Now we're going to talk about the impact of imports on total surplus. So case 2, this is impact of import on TS. TS stands for total surplus. Okay. Again, we go back to our supply and demand curve analysis. The vertical axis we have price, on the horizontal axis we have quantity. We have the domestic demand curve T, we have the domestic supply curve S here. So before we engage in any sort of trade, the domestic price is given by the market equilibrium price, which is PA, autarky price, and autarky quantity, QA. Now suppose that you are an importer. Instead of being an exporter, you are an importer, and you want to import shards. Maybe you want to import shards from China. Okay. The question is, when is it actually profitable for you to engage in this sort of trade? When you want to import, that's the question. You want to import shards only when you find that it's profitable to do so, and it's profitable to do so if you can buy the shard from China at a price lower than PA, and you can sell it at a lower price in the market. Okay. So what's happening here is instead of buying the shards from the domestic producers at a price of PA, you're buying it from China at a price lower than PA. Suppose you're buying it from China at a price PW. PW is the world price. So you're buying the shard from China at a lower price PW, which is lower than the domestic price. So you're buying it at a price of PW, and then you're selling it in the market at a price of PA. Okay, so you're making a profit, right? Because you're buying it from China at a price of PW, but in the market, in the domestic market, in USA, you're selling it for PA, which is higher than PW. So you're making a profit by importing shards and then selling it into China. Sorry, selling it in USA. So as you find it profitable to import shards from China and sell it in the US market, what you want to do is you want to import more shards now and sell more shards in US market. Okay, the imported shards in US market. So what's actually happening is you are selling at now you can actually sell at a lower price in the market, but other companies, or the domestic companies in the US market, now they want to be competitive with you. Okay, because you are charging a lower price, in the market, but the domestic companies, to remain competitive, they will also keep decreasing their price. So the price in the domestic market will keep decreasing from PA until it reaches the world price PW. Okay, so domestic price now becomes PW instead of PA. So before the trade, the consumer surplus was given by the upper triangle here. Okay, this region, the consumer surplus was given by this region, as we have seen in the previous case, and the producer surplus is given by this lower triangle before the trade. After the trade, the price becomes PW in the market, in the domestic market, and we have a new price line. So new price line looks like this. And from this new price line and the domestic demand and supply curve, we can find the new quantity supplied at the price PW. So new quantity supplied is QS, and the new quantity demanded is QD. So now you see that at a price PW, your quantity demanded in the domestic market is higher than the quantity supplied. Okay, so you have an excess demand, which is given by this distance. So this is what we call excess demand in the market. Okay, and this is nothing but equals QD minus QS. Alright, so the difference between quantity demanded and quantity supplied gives you the excess demand. And it's no surprise that this excess demand is also the quantity of import. Okay, so this is what you are actually importing, QD minus QS. This is because the domestic demand is higher than the domestic supply. So to meet the extra demand, you import shards from China. So this region, this distance, QD minus QS, which is their excess demand, is also the same as import. So this is what you are actually importing. So in the exam, in the question, you know the quantity demanded, and if you also know the quantity supplied, you take the difference between them, and you can then tell from the difference that that is what you're actually importing. That's the total quantity of imports. Okay, let me erase this now to allow us some more space. There you go. Now let's label the different regions here. We have A, we have B, we have C, we have D, we have E. Okay. So now before the trade, before you engage in any sort of trade, before you import it, the consumer surplus was given by upper triangle here. So the region is A. Region A gives you the consumer surplus before trade. And what about the producer surplus before trade? PS1 is the area given by the lower triangle, which is B plus E. B plus E. B plus E is your producer surplus, and it was your producer surplus before import. After import, your consumer surplus CS2 is given by the region between the new price line, the vertical axis, and the demand curve. So that region, so as I said, the new price line PW here, the new price line here, let me use a black ink. The new price line here, the area between the new price line, the vertical axis, and the portion of the demand curve. Okay? So this triangle gives us the new consumer surplus after trade. And this is given by A plus B plus C plus D. A plus B plus C plus D is your new consumer surplus after the trade or after import. What about the new producer surplus? PS2. It's given by the area between the vertical axis here, vertical axis, and the new price line, and the portion of the supply curve here. So basically this small triangle E. So what you see is that the producer surplus after the trade has actually shrunk from this big lower triangle, from this big lower triangle to this small lower triangle E. Okay? So before the trade, the producer surplus was this big triangle, but after the trade, the producer surplus becomes small, this small triangle. Okay? Okay, let's calculate, let's try to find out the change in consumer surplus of the trade then. Del CS equals CS2 minus CS1, which is equal to A plus B plus C plus D minus A. So we cancel these, we have B plus C plus D. That's the change in consumer surplus. What about the change in producer surplus? Change in producer surplus is PS2 minus PS1. PS2 minus PS1. I'm running out of space, but let's try to fit it in there somehow. So we're subtracting PS1 from PS2, so we should be left with negative B. So what we see here? What we see here is that the change in consumer surplus is a positive number. So the consumer surplus is actually increasing after import. And the change in producer surplus is a negative number. That means the producer surplus is actually decreasing when you engage in import, when you start importing. So now we want to see the total change in surplus. Exactly the same steps as we did in the previous case. So change in total surplus del TS equals del CS plus del PS. Okay? So B plus C plus D plus C plus D. negative b minus b. So these cancel out. We are left with c plus d, which is again a positive number. So what you see is that the change in total surplus is a positive number. That means after you engage in trade, the total surplus actually increased. So again we are back to our claim that when you engage in trade, it results in an increase in surplus, and that's exactly what happened here as well. After you engaged in import, you have an increase in total surplus. Although your producer surplus decreased, but your consumer surplus increased, and at the end of the day, the total change in surplus was positive. So after you engage in trade, the total surplus increased. That means the country actually gained, the economy gained. Okay, now we're done with the impact of import on total surplus. We will talk about the impact of tariff on total surplus.